Now, as I go about this, I come across stuff like this, right? I've already ground this down, so there's where I'm doing the panels back there and up here. It looked very similar to something like this. It's not rusted through, there's not a hole, it's not really that bubbly, it's just a bit of surface rust, right? So I don't want to cut the entire thing out because, I mean, the metal's still there, it's just pitted basically. There's a bit of pitting rust going on. So I took the grinder to it, I sanded it down as much as possible. Try to get a better shot. It's all solid metal around everything. Then right in there is the pitted rust, which is not much there anymore, but the grinder, you know how it works. You can't, it's pitted rust. Essentially, the rust, this is your body panel. The rust does this. Makes a big W and a bunch of holes in it. And unless you sand really deep into it, you can't get it all out. So what I'm gonna try to do here is putting acid on it. I think it's something. There's some sort of acid that eats up all the rust, and I'm gonna paint that all over these random spots where it's really small surface rust that I can't take off the grinder or the sanding. So I'll put the acid on that to get rid of all the rust, and then I'll put POR 15 on that, and then I'll go back with Bondo over top of it to get rid of the very small pitting that you can probably see in there. So all those little pits, after I put the acid and the POR, then I'll come over it with Bondo just to clean it up at the very end. That's my plan for that kind of small stuff. So, okay, the pro tips just keep coming. What I'll say is don't use whatever spool of flux core wire they give you with whatever welder you buy, no matter what it is. Maybe, I don't know, maybe something different. I've bought a $90 Harbor Freight welder and the $500 Hobart Handler 140. Both spools that came with the stuff that I bought was really not that good. It was burning holes almost automatically, a lot of spatter, and then I bought a spool from Ace Hardware for this panel, and I could almost lay a bead with it. Of course, let me get in here. I could not continuously lay a bead, but I can get them very close, and I can almost build up a lot of weld. I mean, that's pretty solid. We're not missing anything in there. I'm gonna keep going on the top, but I've got it welded there and there. I mean, that's pretty good compared to what I could do with the stuff that came with the welder that I bought. I couldn't get anywhere near. I was burning through immediately. The stuff you buy aftermarket is, I mean, I would imagine is much better in my experience. And now that I've done this, I remember this from the Harbor Freight welder that I bought for $90. The spool that came with it was trash, and the stuff that I bought from Home Depot was a lot better. This stuff is from Ace, but buy a different spool. Whatever it comes with, don't use it. Buy a different spool. We're moving on to the next panel. This is the door. You can see we've got quite a few holes here, some bubbling rust here, and I think the back side of it might have some holes too. I'm not sure. Actually, the inner rocker, the back side of this isn't too bad. So I'm gonna see, I do have the inner rocker if I need to replace it. There's not too much rust up there, just some dirt from Moab. So I'm gonna cut out this panel right here. We're gonna draw ourselves a line, chop that out. I don't know exactly, it's probably spot welded right in here because my patch panel ends right about there. And then I'm assuming my rocker sits somewhere in here. So the rocker, I do know there's spot welds, you gotta drill them out. So let's see if I can show you. You see that, that's a spot weld. Those kind of things there. There's gonna be a bunch of them. When we take the rocker out, we'll have to drill all those out. And there might be some cutting, but I'll let you know. Cut out the panel. Here's what's on the inside. I could see this from the back, so I knew that somebody had used like fiberglass mesh to do some sort of a Bondo repair. Like I was saying, I think this truck was like semi-restored 20 years ago. And it's the back side of my panel. Went right in like that. There's all the rot. You can see we've got it contained. There's no other rot behind it, well, aside from this guy. So I'll probably, I'm gonna have to chop out this fender right now, and I've pretty much got it scratched to where the rust goes. There's really none in here to here, but then there's a spot right here that's pretty bubbled and rusty, and it does have a hole right through it. So I've got the entire thing, and I could do the entire rocker, but there's no rust up front. So I mean, there could be some that I just can't see, but oh well. So yeah, this stuff is not with the rocker. There's a tiny bit of surface rust there, but I should be able to grind that off and acid it away. And this is all inside, so I'm gonna cut like right here, and then I'll probably cut somewhere up in here, or yeah, I might as well cut somewhere right around there. And then I'll drill out the spot weld to pull it off. Bit of a change of plans here. I was originally gonna cut and chop all this off because I got a small pinhole right around here. Can't see it. But everything else was fine. And as I was going through and drilling out these rivets, all this metal is pretty much fine. There's a little bit of surface rust right here, but it's all still very structural and not rusted through. So it was mainly like right over here. I didn't want to drill out all these spot welds. They were taking forever, and I really wasn't having much luck finding them. So what I did is just chop out the piece with the most rust, and goes somewhere like that. And then the backside really wasn't bad at all. There was one rust hole right here, so I just cut that out, and I'll weld just something over top of that, and it shouldn't really be a big deal. No one will really be able to ever see it unless you crawl underneath there and look from the backside. But all this is still fine. It's just, I don't know, surface rust. Everything looks pretty good, but there's a good amount of like surface rust or small pitting on it, and I really can't get a wire wheel or the grinder with the flat disc in there too well. So I'm gonna go run and grab the acid right now so I can put the acid on this stuff, let it remove the rust while I maybe work on a different panel, and then I can come back in once it's clean and hit it with the weld through primer and start welding on my patch. I don't mind the thunder in the background, but I think the muriatic acid did pretty well. Let's get her to focus. If you can see, most of the rust, I mean, it's basically gone. There's still some pitting, obviously, and a little bit of discoloration. No way to get rid of that, but all the rust is actually gone from these surface spots, so I think that's gonna work really well. So, and this is all still fine metal. I'm just gonna butt weld into this instead of doing the flange weld. I may flange it over here. I don't know. I may flange that. I may just butt weld onto it. And then we'll go down and meet up with this piece here. I'll do some spot welds on that. And same thing overall, all the way over here. And then it's gonna spot weld onto this. Now that was all, you could see that was all rusted and had a bunch of surface rust and pitting. So the muriatic acid did pretty good. I'm gonna hit it all, I'm gonna clean it up real quick, get the dust out of here, and then I will hit it with some weld through primer, and I'll let that dry while I'm building my template. Okay, so this little inner or outer rocker is in. And I take it back. The new spool that I used, the lighting was pretty good. I mean, I could almost lay a pretty crummy bead on this very thin sheet metal. So got it tack welded in there pretty good. And now I've got this sheet ready to go, basically all cut out. Let's grind it off. We are going to burn this one in. Make sure that we're not missing anything. Burn it in, make sure the door still opens and shuts. and then we'll kind of finish this side up. Well, this side, the driver's side, is done with welding. Still got to do a little bit of grinding on these little welds here. I got to grind them down to finish them flat, and then it'll be a bunch of Bondo and everything over here, but my lines are for the most part straight. Door opens and closes. Did a few spot welds over here, and then that's the new panel, no more rust. Got a couple new panels in the back, new quarter. So that's gonna be it for this side. So we are on the passenger side now. You know, hole cut out. Here's the rocker, or where it was. So here is the actual piece that I cut out down there. Now the passenger was quite a bit worse than the driver. The inner rocker was actually pretty much completely rotted through as well. There's the remnants of it sitting on the ground over there. It came out in pieces. So I bought inner and outer rockers when I did this. I just didn't need it on the other side. So here's the inner rocker that they gave me. Had a bunch of weird folds and bends on it. I didn't take too long to look at it or figure it out, so I did not. I cut the pieces off of it, and it's gonna go right in here. Something like that. And that'll connect me down on the backside for my outer rocker, and that'll give me something to weld to here. And then I will put my outer rocker over top of that, but I haven't cut that piece out yet. I just grinded everything off, hit it with muriatic acid, then hit it with the weld through primer, and now I'm about to weld on this inner rocker right now, and we'll go from there. I was actually able to hold a bead, and I could have kept going. That wasn't the bead. I was actually able to hold one. I just, you know, inner fenders in, or inner rockers in. Let's move on to sizing and doing the outer. Okay, got the panel in. We got the rocker in, inner and outer. That's all done. Got this one to do. You can see I've already started tracing the dust out. But I think just timing wise, it's gonna work out better. I think I am gonna go do this guy back here, and then I will do that one next. It's gonna be a bigger panel, so moving along. So on this back panel, I tried a butt weld instead of a flange weld, just cause honestly the flange tool I have kind of sucks. It don't work all that well. And it turned out pretty good. This is a very easy shape for me to cut out and not mess up the shape. That was another big thing I didn't want to have to butt weld for. Don't be fooled here. This isn't just my terrible welding. There must have been some sort of damage in this area way back in the car's life, because the bodywork was done right. There was no rust underneath it. It just had like a 1/4 inch of Bondo, so this is caved in. That's why it's not sticking there. But everything else was pretty much spot on there. And flange versus butt, I don't really care, to be honest. I think the butt welding is going to be a little bit less work Bondo wise for me later, because I don't have any height differential to make up. I'm just going to grind off these guys, and then, you know, we're good from there. Fill in a little bit of Bondo in these holes and cracks. Okay, that was the last panel. I already did the rear, skipped around a bit. And that's the last one. So I think hopefully all the welding is done. Next step for me is just going to be to go through. There's a lot of places where a little bit of paint is bubbling and there's some like pitted surface rust beneath it. So I'm going to get in, grind off, clean off all that stuff. You've also got some like little flaky looking paint and crap with orange dust underneath it, so I assume there's some moisture and rust in there. So I'm going to go through with the grinder and take away all of that stuff, and then I'll put acid all over that stuff, and then I can probably grind these welds down some more and move on to Bondo, prepping for paint. We have alright, well there you go. We've got all the welds ground down. We are ready to clean this whole thing off. And then we need to spray the rust reforming spray on everything, especially these guys with the pitted areas. So we're gonna hit all that, and then it's gonna get a coat of epoxy primer, and then it's time for Bondo. So that's where we're going right now.